Not enough of us give ourselves space to be creative, to make truly extraordinary marketing, because on the levels of awareness, you can have appropriate messaging based on how close they are to you. What if you could make a free lead magnet that people believed was worth hundreds of dollars? That's what we're talking about today. So a little bit of counterintuitive marketing that this is recent history, and the hypothesis was this. If we just focused on giving out as much value as possible, people would feel overwhelmed with this compelling force of reciprocity to buy our stuff. We would not try to sell anymore. We would have no intentional campaigns. We would have no promotions. All we would do is just focus on giving away as much valuable stuff as possible and just trust in reciprocity. That was a hypothesis. I guess I'm reporting it back to you because it worked. But let me talk to you about this idea of the hook and how I came up with this, and I'll give you a little backstory. So the backstory is, my kids, for the last couple of years, we started doing these advent calendars. So it's like the countdown to Christmas, and you got like 25 days, and they'd put like all these little like free things in it. And so we did one for like trucks. They're really into trucks right now. And so every day you open it up, you get like a different, like, it might call it like a pusher truck or like a crane truck or like a dump truck. And they're little like, 13-cent cars, plastic cars made in China, but they look forward to it every single day. And it was the greatest countdown to Christmas. And I actually in the season learned about this tradition. Somebody else did, is their parents would wrap all of their Christmas books every year, and then you'd unwrap it. And it was like, next year, that's what I'll do. But this idea of like, you already have a natural holiday, right? And so much of good marketing is just creating anticipation and also taking advantage of any opportunity to be loud. And so here is the end of the year. For me, this is a big holiday season. I don't naturally celebrate as much, but my wife does. And so like, I feel like I'm learning better marketing from her. It's like, she is great about creating anticipation and excitement. And you just feel better about whoever's brand it is. Someone's half birthday. I care more about my kids' half birthdays now than I never would have even imagined possible. And it's because she does really good marketing internally for our house. And so that's the backstory. We understand Advent. I'm leading up to it. And the other factor that's going on here, in case anyone hasn't heard me talk about this before, Q4 of the year, big spending time. If you're picking out a time to try and do stuff to get more sales, Q4 is a great time to do it, because there are folks, we literally have people like DM like days before the end of the year. It's like, essentially, I've got money burning in a hole in my pocket. What can I buy from you? And that's already happening naturally. I live in the same reality where if you do any sort of like tax assessment, you're like, oh man, you're basically, depending on your tax bracket, saying like, it's like getting a 30% off coupon. Like I could buy it right now and I would experience a benefit of this in like 5 weeks, or I could buy it next month and experience the benefit in like 13 months. And so you got all this buying behavior going on, holidays, all the pressure to buy. Advent working in there. And so I came up with this idea. I called it SaaSmas. And it was an Advent countdown where every day I would drop more and more freebies. And I just challenged myself to like, how much possible free value could I deliver? It was interesting because it only backfired, and I don't want to say it backfired. I only had one case of a person saying, why do I even pay you? You gave me all the stuff that I wanted, so I'm just going to stop paying you. So that's usually a fear. People have that fear of like, if you give away too much stuff for free, like you got nothing left for them to buy. But here's in the net experience for us is we had a 30% greater customer acquisition. So like pick whatever that is, for you numbers, you're like, okay, I'll just use easy numbers. If you usually get 100 people subscribing, it's 130. It's like, that's a 30% growth of customer acquisition that happened. And I had one case of the person unsubscribed because they were like, I don't need to pay for your stuff anymore. You kind of gave me everything I needed. But in that space of freebies, I understand you need to pay attention. And so a lot of folks, when you give out free stuff, they think this is garbage. Like you're giving away your trash. You're giving away unvaluable things. That's why you're giving away for free. And for me, I was like, well, no, I'm giving away I want to give away as valuable stuff as I possibly can. The challenge was to find new categories of stuff because I didn't want to cannibalize other things that people had paid for. So I'm not just giving away our product. And so you're looking for like, how do I do this with lead magnet? And so here comes the story. There is a book. ironically titled Great Leads. It has nothing to do with lead generation whatsoever. It's called Great Leads. It's by Michael Masterson. I was gifted this book. I didn't buy it. I assume somebody had some hookup or knew them, and it might have been one of the high level, not high level, but like a big mastermind, whatever, that I was in. I think this is like one of the perks, is like rare, hard to come by books. And I was finally getting around to read it, like, I don't know what it was, earlier, a few months ago. And I just, I was curious. Actually, here's what set off the story, is I was like, I like audiobooks. I'm like, this is a book. I should do it. I want to listen to it. So I was like, I want to listen to it. I go, there's no audiobook. But the surprising thing is I find this book is for sale for like $300 to $500. And I'm just like astounded. I'm like, this, how is this on Amazon? You're like, on Amazon, and you're like, well, if you want to buy a used one, it's only $150. You're like, the used copy, like, I've got this is at the time before I read it, I was like, this is like new. This is a $300-$400 book.
Right.
But it got me thinking, like, I've done book summaries before. I've read through books, given notes before, but they're like, what's the value of the freebie? If I give you a book summary, you're like, well, it's worth my time, my insights. There's some value on it, but you're like, the book is $20. So value of my notes on the book, how much did you pay for that? You probably think I pay $7. Maybe like I pay $50, but if you're trying to pick a quantifiable value, you're like, I wouldn't pay for that usually. Like, there's actually in services that do this, and they charge $10 a month, $50 a month for, all of their book summaries or whatever it might be. And so it's difficult to find value there. And so here's what I did is so because of the story, I realized, I was like, here's this book that I have that's hundreds of dollars. So if I do the same thing that I would do for another book, instead of being perceived to be worth $10, this is perceived to be worth hundreds of dollars, just because the book happens to be worth that much. Like, I kind of lucked into that scenario, but you got to kind of look for those stories. Like, where's the opportunity where the same amount of work is worth more because of the context that goes around it? And so we're doing all these freebies, all sorts of cool, building a lot of anticipation. And this was the final freebie. This was Christmas, my Christmas present to everyone. And there was like, that story builds a ton of value there. And so what I did, so the other thing that I did about it, when you're trying to increase value, is I created my own audiobook. Now, if you're listening to this, I don't know if this is legal, so don't do what I'm doing before. And I'm just saying, I thought of it like this. I was like, if I just had a book club and read it to my friends, like, I'm not selling it. I'm just inviting you in, and you're just my friends, and I'm not listing anywhere this is publicly, and you can't have it. But this is like, so a private, reading is more of what I like to position that as. But what I realize is now they're even more so. This is like good gift giving. What would I have said? Wow, that is super valuable, and I really would have appreciated that, is an audiobook. 1,000%. Like, that's what started this whole journey off. I wanted an audiobook. And so for myself, I'll tell you, in the first chapter of this book, it's a good book. It's a good framework. I'll give you, I can't tease you completely and leave you with nothing. So I will give you kind of my spark notes at the end of the show. But the part of it is they say, hey, like, internalize this. Like, this is a book designed not to just be read once, but to be read multiple times. Because there are some good concepts, and I'll talk to you what the book's about. But I was like, darn it, if I'm going to internalize it, like, I need to listen to it. Like, I'm not going to sit down on my, office chair for an hour a day and just read a chapter. Like, that's not going to happen to me. But I might listen to it in the gym. Like, there's other places. If I can get an audio, I'll re-listen to books way more. Like, I don't know if I've ever, it's happened at times, but like, it's way more common for me to re-listen than to reread. It's just a different kind of commitment in my mind. So hence my decision that I read into a microphone the entire book. So I sat down and did story time with Matt, where I'm just reading the book. And even thought, I was like, I could do little like commentary between chapters. So I'm going to do like, hey, here's the chapter, and then here's Matt's commentary on the chapter. So now you not only have the audiobook, and if you want, you can have chapters on like, here's my thoughts about it, which is actually my favorite type of audiobooks. Like, what I love those audiobooks that I get, where it's like, hey, they read the book, but then also the author. Now, I'm not the author, but it, there's additional commentary happening behind it. So I go through this process.
How long did it take?
Well, so I mean, I don't know, 8 hours. Like like you got to sit there and read
time.
Like you're just like going and doing it. You're just like,
yeah.
So my secret here is if you want to make something valuable, just put a ton of time behind it. And there it is. Hard work is the punchline. There's
hard work is the secret.
Hard work is the secret. No, I mean, it was time invested, but here's what I love about it is I did it. I was like, I want this for me. If I like this fills a need for myself, but there was also a cool intersection there of value, anticipation. It was a cross section of a lot of wins and possibilities. And I think not enough of us give ourselves space to be creative, to make truly extraordinary marketing. Because on the levels of awareness, you can have appropriate messaging, or as the book calls them, leads, based on how close they are to you. So let me talk about the book. So this is a very meta thing happening here, but like actually knowing the book made this process better. So there is Gene Schwartz's framework for the levels of customer awareness. This is an old concept, and I've heard this taught many times before. And you may have heard of like there's I think 5 stages? 5 stages of awareness, and it goes from unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, and most aware. And if you think about it, like those are, you're going on the marketplace, you have folks that completely unaware. That's the majority of the marketplace. Then you got problem aware. That's still the bigger bucket. And then it kind of goes down from there where it's like they're solution aware. They know what they need. They're product aware. They know what you provide. They actually know about your product. And then most aware, they're most close to you. Like they not only know your product, but they have like hung out with us and spent a ton of time with us. So my original intention with this book was getting our team on board with like, hey, understanding that here's the lens by which we can make our marketing better. Start to think about it in terms of talking to folks in the way that they want to be talked to, or the way that's most effective and compelling for them based on what stage of awareness they're at. And that's the summary for this book. So Great Leads is basically saying there are different leads in the context of the book is talking about hooks. So basically hear that as great hooks. They say your first message, your first 100 words or whatever it is the most important. If you fail at that, it doesn't even matter what else you do. And if you do that really well, like everything else gets better. So first impressions matter. And if you make your hooks align with the awareness of the customer, you also get a dramatically better output there. And so what I realized for us, and I would say for like baby steps for folks, I typically say focus on the problem. It's a big bucket. It's an addressable, it's a big bucket that's kind of easy to address, right? Because it's they're problem aware. They're not necessarily solution or product or you aware, but they'll resonate with the problem. So that's a lot of our stuff. I just focus on be loud about the problem. You're going to be believed to be the best at solving it. But as you start to like go at this, they kind of pair those 6 or I guess 5 levels. They do 5 levels of that awareness, and they come up with 6 different lead types or hook types. That is when you're starting off the conversation or your content. If you speak about it in this way, or if you start with these kind of hooks or frames, or they call them leads, you're going to have a lot more effectiveness there. And so, I guess to quickly, give you some tangible takeaways from there. They've got on your most unaware folks, the best types of hooks are pure story. They feel safe. They feel accessible. They are, this is the classic example of, the 2 men who grew up together? What's this? Was it the Wall Street Journal? It was like a journal story hook, and it says like this is a story about 2 men. They grew up together. They went to college together. They had the same degree. They got about the same grades. They went off into the workforce together. And, 5 years later, one of them is a, VP of the division. They actually work at the same company. And one of them is the CEO. The only discernible difference is that the CEO subscribed to the Wall Street Journal. What I forget if it was the Wall Street Journal, whatever it is.
I was good. I'm like, ooh, tell me more.
No, yeah. I know. And so this is kind of a, I think in the copywriting world, a classic story frame and hook is you don't even know anything's being sold to you. So you forget for a moment that you're maybe even engaging with an advertisement because you're just drawn into the story. On the other side of it, for your most aware folks, You just need to make a very clear, no-brainer offer. Hey, 50% off, like buy 3 months, get 3 months free. Like that's it. That offer is going to convert better for your most aware folks than the story would, because your most aware folks maybe they've heard your stories before. They're like,
right.
I don't need more stories. I just need a clear offer. So anyway, great book. And if there's anything you could take away from this podcast, hopefully it's if you can challenge yourself to be creative with the free content that you give away, and seasons of anticipation, I think are incredibly powerful, and just tactically and tangibly are the effective result that we saw. We changed nothing. It was a pure A/B experiment of change nothing. Only focus, like the only variable that we changed is we tried to give out as much free value as possible. And we saw a dramatic lift. And the cool thing about how we ran our process there also is we could see the full journey. So now, and the aftermath of it, if you're like, Matt, I know this, I'm listening to your podcast because I went through this whole process. Well, I'll tell you, you're gonna see, if you're on the fence, you still haven't purchased anything from me, which is fine, no judgment, but I'm gonna make you an offer because I'm like, you are the most aware. And so this was a building it up. So if you didn't buy and you're like, I'm still there on the fringe, and I'm like, I know everything you're saying, Matt. We are now trying to figure out like what would be the compelling offer. And so hopefully you're okay with a compelling offer, but there's the story. There's how we did it is I think one of the most effective lead magnets we got with the most positive feedback. And it was born out of a ton of anticipation. Yes, a good amount of hard work, but also a great story where I could have done this for any book. And I found the book that had it. And so you can manufacture the same thing.
Sure.
If you see that space, that artifact, that thing that is hard to come by or whatever, it just is a great story in and of itself. I might advise now, I might go on Amazon and buy those crazy high priced books just because the story is there. Right. Yep. And as you're thinking about free things that you can do, that you can create, that will have lasting output. And so I guess I got to tease you. I don't got to tease you, but if you've listened this far, I kind of want to let you go through the process here. And
I was going to say, how do they get it?
How do they get it? I know that's the question. I would love to tell you can go and get it, but we actually shut it down. So it was a seasonal thing. So as of right now, I don't have a way to get it. But here's what I say. If you want to get it and you're not subscribed to Margin Makers right now, I would say, look, it's hlprotools.com. I would go and subscribe to our newsletter. This is the newsletter that I do every Tuesday. And that will ensure that you see all these campaigns as they're happening. So if you want to participate and not miss out on any other freebies, subscribe to Margin Makers.
There it is. I like it. Awesome. Really good stuff. And if you're an entrepreneur who has, a friend or somebody else that needs this much amazingness in their life, share this podcast with them.